Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. I am so gratified in these times where you can say these two words and people don't judge you. It wasn't this way, 30 years ago. But if you say mental health, now it's a positive where you say, yeah, I have a therapist appointment later on today. I'll get back to you. Nobody looks at you funny. It's actually quite the opposite. If you don't have a therapist, like, you don't have a therapist? I've got a therapist. And that's fantastic because that's part of our health. And we're going to dig into part of that today, but also put the spotlight on a wonderful wellness center located in Massachusetts where they are doing fantastic things, all different types of modalities and therapy, from therapeutic training and support, mentoring, medication management, group therapy, and so much more. And she's the woman that is behind the New Beginnings Wellness Center. Sherri Alexandrovich joins us today on the program. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing today?
Wonderful as well. And I'm learning more and more about your center, and I'm finding it fantastic in terms of what you and your team are doing up. What part of Massachusetts are we talking?
We're in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Ah, okay, interesting. I grew up in Port Jefferson, New York, which
Okay.
is across from Connecticut, and I would listen to the radio and I would hear, your town all the time and feel like I'm connected to it just by listening to the radio. Um, you have many different services you offer. Can we look at some of those?
Sure. So one of the biggest services that we offer is called in-home therapy, and that is a Mass Health product, and it's sponsored by the Child Behavioral Health Initiative. And so this service is a team approach. So there's a lead, a mental health clinician, and a therapeutic training and support, which is a bachelor level provider. And so the team goes into an identified home, and it's a high risk service. So they spend about 5 hours, sometimes a little bit more each week with the family. In addition to that, they work with any of the collaterals that are involved with the family as well, whether that be, the Department of Children and Families, whether that be probation, the school department, ICC, intensive care coordinator, other outside providers that might be involved, the medication management providers. So what we do is we go in, it's a strength-based service, and we go in to these families where the kiddos are at risk of either removal, have probation, truancy problems, inpatient. And the goal is to support the family as a whole and to go in and kind of assess what's working, what more does this family need that we can help strengthen. So we're really looking at it from a positive perspective, not from what are you doing wrong perspective. I mean, these families or caregivers or foster parents, have been successful to a large degree with the kiddos that they're taking care of. So what additional support can we give them? Parenting techniques, emotion regulation, attunement, a variety of different skills. And so we're spending a lot of time with this family just to keep the family either intact or to help with the reunification process. So
Wow.
I would say that's probably a large area of what we focus on. We also have office-based outpatient therapy. We have school-based. We have 7 or 8 school contracts that we work with in the surrounding areas: Spencer, Leicester, Southbridge, Dudley. And so we go in and we do one-on-one counseling with the kiddos in the school setting. And those kids are identified either by the school, either by the parents who are requesting, school-based services. We also do home-based services, therapeutic mentoring, and medication management.
My gosh, what you offer is so impactful to so many families and so many children and teens that are having some major, major challenges. I had no idea that your in-home therapy was working with those families. Um, you're literally changing lives. My gosh.
Absolutely. My in-home therapy teams are absolutely amazing. I mean, I've had in my my teams have been with me since I've opened for 10 years. And then, I would say that the majority of my staff has been with me for at least 7 years. So that's been wonderful. They're amazing. They do such great work out in the
Mm.
community. They do such great work with working with all the providers and the collaterals, and we really take the time to put in the effort and the work that needs to be done rather than just going in with a behavioral perspective. We go in from a trauma lens, and that's really who we are as an agency, is not just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, so to speak. We go in and we find out what is going on, because behind every behavior is a reason. These kiddos didn't just wake up one day and decide, oh, well, today's the day that I'm going to, get into drugs or rob a bank or not go to school, or name the reason. There's a reason that these things are happening. And so getting in and really understanding what that looks like, and sometimes it's generational trauma. It goes back with the families and the grandparents. It's cultural, it's environmental. There's just a multitude of different reasons. And so we really go in there with that open-minded perception of, where is this family at? It's an individualized approach. We don't go in there with this blanket treatment plan that's going to be applicable to all families. It's really very specific to what that one family needs, or in the outpatient world, what that one individual client needs, and working within the realm of that individual perspective, I think, is what really makes the us unique here at New Beginnings.
Very unique. Looking at New York, I've never heard of anything quite like this program. So maybe it doesn't exist, but when there's a situation in a home, many times CPS will be contacted, maybe contacted by the school. There'll be, an investigation. And a lot of times it just falls short. There's nobody's dispatched to say, okay, once a week, there's going to be some mental health services provided to your family. I've never, ever, ever heard of that. I've talked to parents that have had challenges, on and on and on and on. Is this something that is unique to Massachusetts?
Yes, it is. So it's a Mass Health funded program.
Wow.
New Beginnings is that's the population that we work with, and that's by design. When I started New Beginnings, my passion is to work with the population of individuals who don't either have access to services, are in foster care, are at high risk. That's the passion that's really important to me. We do offer services to the private sector as well, with a group practice that I opened a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
so that, we are able to offer services both in the Mass Health and in the private sector. But my passion and the mission of New Beginnings was really to be able to offer these services as intensively as we can to the families who just have, either people aren't interested in spending the amount of time, don't have the amount of time, don't have the expertise, shy away from such challenging cases. We have
Yes.
probably some of the most challenging cases in the Worcester community.
I'm blown away here. It's almost as if, you, Sherri, started this business and said, I want a challenge. I'm going to dive right into the deep end of the pool, as opposed to and nothing wrong with this, opening up a practice where it's private therapy and, a little bit lighter, if you will, by and large. No, you dove right in, and that just shows your passion, your tenacity, and your love of helping people and families. Where does that come from? Where did this all begin for you?
So I would say my past. I was emancipated youth at 16. I was removed from my home at 15. My mother had some severe dissociative identity disorder, along with alcohol and drug abuse. And so I think just being that little girl that people didn't have the time, or we're talking over 50 years ago. Times were very different back then. Services were very different back then. And so to be able to have the opportunity now, I went into this with the hope to help just one kiddo, right? Not have to experience or go through this life journey by themselves. And it's really kind of morphed into obviously so much bigger than I could have anticipated. I mean, we've grown from 12 employees to 48 employees, which in 10
Wow.
years is pretty
My gosh.
significant growth.
Wow. Yeah, I love you, Sherry, that you walk the walk and talk the talk.
Thank you.
This is where you came from, and now it's like you're giving back. Your purpose is to help others. Love it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Um,
And I do believe that. I do believe I look at all of the obstacles or challenges or things in my life that I've overcome as reasons that help me to be the person that I am today, or to be able to have that, that genuine empathy and be able to give the advice from that perspective of, you know, we don't have to repeat cycles. And, I think that we get really what I hear a lot is I am because, and for me, I really like to help guide people that because can mean anything. You have that opportunity to change what that because is. And, even if you haven't experienced love or support or nurture or somebody that's been there along the way, you get to make the decision, regardless of what happened yesterday, that today you get to make the decision for something more and for something different. And if I can serve as that role model, that makes me feel so happy in my heart. That makes my soul feel really good, because things happen for a reason. And I do believe that, the universe puts things out there for us for lessons, and it's what we do with those. And it's always about forward movement.
you're speaking my language. You really are. And I I believe there's a lesson in everything, and sometimes we can't see it at that time.
Mhm,
And when you said moving forward, that has been kind of my mantra in the last year.
mhm,
And that comes from, when you were younger, you would hear these things, maybe a parent or whatever would say these little phrases, and you'd say, "You're old. Stop. I don't want to hear it. Stop, 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 stop." And my mom used to say, "Just go with the flow. Go with the flow." And I'm like, "Yeah, where do we go with the flow?" Now I look at that and I'm like, what she was trying to say was the universe is going to take you in the river of life, and it's going to pull you down, not down under, but just, in a direction. And
mhm.
if you don't want to go in that direction, you're going to fight it. But guess what? You're going that way anyway. There's a lesson there. The universe wants you to swim. So get on your back and float. Just keep going with the flow. Go with
Right.
the
I love
flow.
that analogy. And I do believe that the universe is going to continue to present specific obstacles or lessons for us until we get them. So if we find
Yes.
ourselves repeating or, asking the question, oh, really, now what? Or, well,
Yeah. Yep.
when does it stop or when does it change? Well, we get to decide that. It's really about taking the time to look inward and saying, okay, what lesson did I need to learn from this? And how can I move forward in a different way?
Mm. And sometimes it's unpleasant and you don't want to listen.
Oh, yeah, I think well, in this journey, both professional and personal, it's it's tough. It's tough to go through it, and
Mm.
but you have to go through it to get through it. And
You got to go with the flow because you're going that
yeah,
way anyway.
absolutely,
What
absolutely.
what has changed? You've been in practice 10 years,
Mhm.
and primarily working with children, teens. What has changed from, say, when you first started to what's going on right now in terms of their mindset and what you're dealing with?
I would say that a reduction in services, a reduction in the amount of providers that are able to work within certain populations or wanting to work in certain populations, I think has been a big shift over the last decade. When I started with New Beginnings, even as recent as maybe 5 years ago or 4 years ago, we would have on an average 54 in-home therapy cases open. Those numbers have drastically reduced over the last few years because of staffing. And there's just a shortage of it, I think, throughout. I mean,
Wow.
I know the United States altogether, but specifically in Massachusetts, of people who want to go into homes and do this work, as opposed to coming into an office or a school setting. It's a very, very different dynamic doing the home-based work. I
Sure.
did in-home therapy for many, many years prior to starting New Beginnings. And for me, that was my most rewarding work. I mean, I absolutely loved working with the gang and drug involved teenage boys. That's my niche.
Yeah.
That's where, and down in, Maine South and those parts. And that's where I feel comfortable because that's my background. That's where I come from. So that's where I feel like I can effectuate the most amount of change. But now we've kind of shifted away from people wanting to do those home-based services for, a variety of different reasons, or having access in the wait lists. I mean, 6+ month wait list for outpatient therapy or even school-based therapy right now is the norm. That's an average
Yes.
wait list here in the Worcester area.
Oh, it's like that everywhere. In fact, I spoke with
Yeah.
somebody recently, a parent, a friend, and got a therapist for a situation that she's going through a divorce, and
Mhm.
the challenges with her son escalated a little bit, and she told me, yeah, I got him into therapy. Its appointment is Monday at 8:30. I'm like, how did you do that? I mean, that's like unheard of. There's a waiting list, and I'm not even talking about the insurance aspect. Even if you want a
Mhm.
private pay, it's very challenging in getting that done. When we talk about this demographic, the younger demographic, are you seeing different things going on with them? Is it um, more blended family situations? Is it challenges with school? What seems to be the common denominator there?
So the common denominator, so we work with a very specific population at New Beginnings. So I can't really give a global answer to that outside of New Beginnings because I don't feel like I would have accurate information for that. So
Sure.
I would say within New Beginnings and the population in which we work with, the majority of the kiddos are either in foster care or have been removed and or are being reunified back home. I think that parents are struggling and don't have access to services, or there's just been such an influx since COVID as well. I think people were really not socialized. They weren't
Uh,
out in the community for a really long time, and
yes.
that's made it really challenging. They missed chunks of school, chunks of socialization, and jobs. And people lost businesses, people lost homes, their finances have, some people haven't recovered for that. So I think that COVID definitely has played a large role in the increased number of services. I think it's also played a role, honestly, in providers wanting to go out into the community and be exposed to all of the things that are out there and being sick or, just the travel portion of it. So, but for the kiddos itself, I think that it's really challenging for them for a variety of different reasons. They're faced with things at a much younger age than we were faced with a couple of decades ago.
Sure.
The drug rate, the relapse rate,
Yep.
that's a large part of what's going on for us here in the Worcester community is
Oh, everywhere, and it's so accessible
addiction.
too. Yeah, I defy any parent to say that their kid hasn't come in contact with a vape. It's just, if you're saying
Absolutely.
that's not my kid,
Mhm.
you might want to rethink that. And I'm not
Right.
saying your kid is vaping, but they might have walked through the hallway and a friend said, "Hey, you want to take a toke?" or whatever it might be. It's
Mhm.
so accessible. Um,
Everywhere.
Before we run out of time, and we're talking about the shortage of mental health care practitioners of all different levels uh, in our society right now. What's your advice? What's your thoughts as somebody who is younger and thinking about maybe becoming a mental health professional?
Never forget the why.
Hmm.
I would say is really important. The work that we do can be the most rewarding thing. It's also one of the most challenging and difficult work that you can get into, but the reward far outweighs the challenges. And just being mindful of self-care, that's super important because if we burn out, then we can't be the best versions of ourselves for our clients. And
Yes.
part of a lot of what we really focus here at New Beginnings is being employee focused and client centered. And so the reason that I believe the reason that we've had such high retention rate here is that I offer so many of the benefits and training opportunities and supervisions and all of the things that you typically, as a therapist in the fee-for-service world, do not have access to. Coming from being a single mom I was 19 when I had my children, high school education. I know what that feels like. If you can't go to work, you don't get paid. I mean, there's just you've got a sick kid at home or there's a snow day. How do you pay your rent? I mean,
Sure.
the mortgage company doesn't care if you can't go to work because your kiddo is sick. And so I think that some of that plays a role in the challenges of why people struggle financially to go into or to stay in this industry. So I would say, don't forget the why. Be super
Mm,
mindful of where you go to work, because if you aren't going to interview at a place that has your best interest at heart, and it's about productivity or it's about money, if you're not supported, you're going to burn out, and it's going to be really difficult to stay and continue to do what you need to do. And so just being really mindful of where you're going to work, being mindful of that home work life balance, that's super important. And just making
mm,
sure that you are in an organization that really supports and encourages, continued growth, supervisions, trainings, paid time off, sick time,
mm.
encourages you to take the time that you need to stay home and really focus on what your family, whatever that looks like, unit for you, in order to be able to come to work and come back on a Monday morning and be refreshed and be able to be the best version of yourself, because our clients deserve that.
Deep question alert.
Yes.
Deep question alert. Here we go. Um, you've seen
Hmm.
a lot of challenging situations that you've dealt with in regard to families. Um, how do you stay strong? How do you always find positivity? Um, I detect you're an empath in a big way.
Yeah.
And here you are going into homes as well, and those environments, and seeing a lot, and the challenges and the struggles that families are going through. How do you stay strong?
It I don't consider this a job for me. This is who I am as a person. So whether I'm in the office or whether I'm at home or regardless of where I'm at, this is just what I love doing. And if I can give one person an opportunity that I never had and be able to see that through for them, there is no greater feeling for me. That just is. And I'm really mindful of self-care too. So I try to unplug a little bit on the weekends. I try to do things with my grandkids who just bring me so much happiness, and I just love them so much. I'm also raising my grandson. I've adopted him. He's 10. I've had him since he's been 3 weeks old. So he
Well,
keeps me very busy and very grounded in what that looks like. We are going to Ghana next week, and we're doing some work over at an orphanage over there for one of the
wow.
providers who works for me, who started this amazing nonprofit called Blessed Nourishment. And so exposing my grandson to that is really important. And as a family, we're going down for the week to be able to kind of do what we can do to support. But just surrounding yourself with people who are just genuine and whole and really love this for what they do, and always just paying attention to, you know, your own self-care and doing things that are fun for yourself, as well as, that for me, this isn't a job. I absolutely just, I can't imagine not doing this. This is my retirement plan. Like I can't imagine ever not doing therapy. This is just something that's just near and dear to my heart, and being able to give back. And I just have all these wonderful things that, helping out with the orphanages in Ghana. And there's a nonprofit Heart to Heart I want to start, which will be a nonprofit drop-in center for the teens of Worcester. And those are things that keep me moving forward and keep me focused on never forgetting the why.
My why is going to be finding a way to clone you.
Okay.
That's my mission. That's my life's mission. So wonderful talking with you, Sherri. Thank you for the work that you and your team do. It's phenomenal. How do
Thank
we
you.
find you? What's the website for the center?
Newbeginningswc.com.
Oh, that's very simple.
Yeah. Yep.
um, before we depart, and
Yes.
before you go to Ghana, I have one really important question I absolutely need to ask.
Okay.
Where's your Boston accent?
Oh, I don't have one.
You don't have one. Like, are
I
you
guess I don't.
originally?
No,
No, you don't. Are you from that area?
I am. I grew up in Massachusetts. Yes, I've lived
Wow.
here my whole
You,
life.
That's pretty wild. You know,
Oh,
I don't hear nothing, maybe a slight Connecticut accent, in a couple of words there, but just I
mhm.
wouldn't even, if I didn't know, I wouldn't even think that. But, and not that it matters, but usually people from Massachusetts have a Boston accent. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious. I was just wondering if you weren't. Hey, listen, I'm from New York. People expect me to sound like this in New York, and I know.
Right, right.
Wonderful talking with you, Sherry. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet with you. Thanks for inviting me.
You too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.